everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. I'm Wendy and I'm so happy you're here. Today I'm teaming up with my sweet friend Heidi from Heidi Sonboul'S DIY and doing 10 Dollar Tree DIYs for your farmhouse Christmas home decor. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome, and I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below as well as the little bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. If you like these projects, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think, and now, without further ado, let's get started. For our first project, we're going to be using a Thanksgiving platter, some buffalo check ribbon, and some greenery. And then I'll be using my Silhouette Cameo 3 to place some words on there. So I'm just using my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to paint my entire platter. And this will take a couple of coats, but you just want to try and get it as smooth as possible. And to keep it from chipping or flaking off, I did sand it first. So I got 2 sweet perky prizes. Actually, I got more, but I'll show you the others in another video. But I got this sweet scissors holder from my friend Deborah in South Carolina, as well as this heat gun that I really needed because my brother is actually borrowing mine right now. And so this is from Jeannie, and I don't know where Jeannie's from, but thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate all your sweet gifts and your words of encouragement and love. I just appreciate it so much. So I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to start drawing a silhouette of what I hope will look a little bit like Mary holding baby Jesus. And so I'm using just a regular pencil, and I had to give this a few tries before I got it to where I kind of liked it and it doesn't look like monkey fingers instead of a woman's fingers. So just remember, if at first you don't succeed, try again. So now I'm just going to start filling in my areas, and I'm using my Waverly chalk paint in Nimbus. You could do this with any kind of paint. It's just what I have on hand, and so I'm using it straight out of the bottle and going inside the lines, and then I'll go back in and fill it in, and then I'm going to add a little bit of white when I do her sleeve. And then for baby Jesus's blanket, I'm going to add some elephant and some white and some nimbus just to give it a kind of shaded look. And then I'll go back in with some lines to make it look even more like a blanket. So hopefully you can tell it's a blanket. And then for her hand and her forehead, I'm going to be using hazelnut and white. And then I ended up leaving my pencil marks in there because it just kind of looked good. So the one thing you don't want to do is get it too wet, because eventually what will happen is that the white that's already on the platter will start coming up. So put your Bob Ross on and just paint away. You guys, this is so relaxing and so meditative because the entire time I was painting, I was just thinking about Mary and what she must have been feeling on that night, and knowing she was giving birth to the Savior of the world. Did she even know what that meant? Or how do you comprehend something like that? And a lot of you guys already know the song called Mary, Did You Know? And I'm going to link that in the description box below, because if you haven't heard it, oh my goodness, you really need to take a listen, especially the version by Pentatonics, which is the a cappella group. Talk about stirring your soul and lifting your spirit. It's just such an amazing song. I wish you guys could listen to it while you're watching me paint. But Judson Crane will just have to do with So Young at Heart. So now I'm going to be using my Silhouette Cameo 3 to cut out the words Mary Did You Know, and I'll be using my FRISCO Craft adhesive vinyl in black matte, and I'll have that as well as a discount code listed in the description box below. So after I put my transfer tape on top of my decal, I'm going to attach it over to the right side of my platter, and then I'm going to start placing some Christmas greenery down at the bottom using my hot glue, and I'm just putting the same thing on the left as I'm putting on the right and getting it very symmetrical, and then I'll add some berries and then finally my bow. I always get questions every video about the little purple tool that I use to push down my items into the hot glue, and that is a makeup spatula that a sweet viewer sent to me, but she got it at the Dollar Tree. I don't know how often they have them in stock, but it sure is handy. But if you can't find one of these, you can always use one of those small spatulas in the kitchen department. So now I'm going to take my white chalk paint and snowy up all of that greenery to get it all pretty and soft. And then I decided that I wanted to add a rim to the platter. So I'm going to take my chalk paint in crimson and go around a couple of times to get it a nice deep dark red. And I think it just frames it perfectly. And here it is all finished, and I love this so much. I know it's not the best paint job, but I'm not an artist, but it doesn't matter because it's still super, super sweet, and it gets the idea across, and I think that's called impressionism. So I love how this turned out. It's perfect for this season. It can really get you thinking. I love it, and I hope you guys like it too. So I'm so excited to be teaming up with my sweet sister in Christ, Heidi Sonboul'S, for this 10 on Tuesday Christmas edition of Dollar Tree DIYs. And it's pretty unlikely that you haven't heard of Heidi by now, but she is so amazing and her crafts are so farmhouse stunning. You will love her personality, her faith. And so we decided to team up and do some Christmas DIYs that really share the true spirit of what Christmas is all about. So once you're done watching this video, head on over to her channel to see her video of her projects, and I'll have that linked in the description box below. Now, having said all that, this is not a Jesus craft, so this one's just fun, and I had some help from my sweet grandkids, and because of their help, I decided to use this to cover up some of the little drippies.
This, pull the lid off, and get a stick this big, turn it over this way, that's like that. Wait. Don't do that one. Don't want to start really walk. I'll just do this one. I mean, I don't stab it. I don't. Oh, like this? No. Wait.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
No. You can do it anyway. I just do it. Shish kebab with ornaments. And then put it in there. Yeah. Hold it. And then keep doing it. Don't do the white ones though. He said don't do them.
Oh my gosh, it was so cute how Carson was teaching Cadence how to do this, and she had just gotten done with class with Gaga, and so she came outside to see what was going on. And you know how kids love to paint, so I wanted to make sure I was the nice grandma that let them paint. Even with all the drippies and all, it was still super cute. And I just wanted to make these a little deeper true red, so I used my Krylon matte finish paint in the red and the black. And so they just placed them on skewers, stuck them into the styrofoam, and painted away in Pop Pop's painting station. So now I'm going to be making a funky bow, and I just cut strips 28 inches long, and then I folded them in half, and then that's going to make them 14 inches. And then 5.5 inches down, I'm going to scrunch them up, and then I'll put them all together. And for the single-sided ribbon, the buffalo check or gingham ribbon, I'm going to twist that bottom tail around so that you can see from the front the good side of the ribbon. And so after I get my pieces all cut and ready to go, I'm just going to alternate the patterns, and I'll do that with 3 different ribbons. And then for the second set, I'm going to turn them upside down facing the other way, and I'll do that 3 times. So you'll have one set facing up, one set facing down, and then the last set facing up again, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to take a red tinsel chenille stem and wrap that around, and then I'm going to take the excess ribbon that I had from those spools, and I'll make the tails and just attach that to the back part of my bow using that extra chenille stem. And then I'll dovetail all of the ends and set that aside until we're ready for it. So now I'm going to take my hot glue and make sure that the tops of my ornaments don't come off and stay in place. And then I'll take my sheer Dollar Tree ribbon and stick that through the hole, and you can see some of the fun drippies on there. So then I'm going to take my bath brush and then undo that netting, and I'll wrap that around my ornament and then gather it at the top, and then using some paddle wire, I'll wrap it around the top portion of the ornament, and then that'll keep it in place. And I'm just going to go ahead and cover a few of them just to give it a little bit of a variety and some touchy-feely goodness. And so once I get those covered, I'm going to cut off the top part of my netting. And then I end up cutting one side of my sheer ribbon, so there'll just be the one strand that they're going to be hanging from. So now to give it a little bit more greenery and embellishing, I'm going to add some greenery to my larger ornaments, and I'm just taking those off of one of the word ornaments from Dollar Tree, and I'll just hot glue and wrap the wire around the top part of my ornament. And then I'll do that on both of the big ones, and then on one of the smaller ones I'll have some so that they hang down. You could use this on your door or just on a wall or wherever you want, or even in a doorway. Ooh, or from a chandelier, just wherever. But anyway, it's just a fun hanging piece. So I'm going to take all of those pieces and I'm going to attach them by tying knots onto a little binder clip. And it's one of those round ones that you get from Dollar Tree. I would have liked to have had a little bit bigger one, but this was all I had on hand. So I just tied those at different levels to let them hang. And then I'm going to add my greenery onto some random pieces. And then I'll take a Christmas stem and I'm going to attach that at the top, and then I'll place my bow on top of all of that to hide the whole mechanism and all those knots. And here's how it turned out, and I think this is adorable and super festive and fun, but it makes it more special because the grandkids got to help me with it, and they're super proud of it. But I love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For our next Christmas project, I'm going to be using some more of the Christmas stems from Dollar Tree, some stars from 4th of July, 3 wooden dowels, a wooden star from the Crafter's Square, and some gingham ribbon in black and red and black and white. And then if you guys are wondering what to do with all those Christmas tree stands that we've been taking off of the Dollar Tree Christmas trees, this is the project for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my star banner and pull the burlap off of the back of it, and then give it a light sanding so that it's nice and smooth so that I can paint over that. And so I used my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I just painted the back and the front. And in hindsight, I wish I would have left the glittery red stripes and stars on the back, because that would have been pretty cute. Anyway, I'm going to paint that all up in white, and then I'm going to paint my dowels in white as well. And I left the ends unpainted so that I could hold on to them, and once I place them into my stands, I'll paint the top part as well. And then I'm going to take my big wooden star and I'm going to paint that in my crimson again on both sides. And then I'm going to take my Christmas tree stands and I'm going to hot glue inside of the little hole of the middle portion, and then I'll stick my dowel inside of that, making sure that it's standing up perfectly straight. And then I can replace my legs, and then I'll have 3 perfect little stands that we'll attach our stars to once we get them done. So originally I had planned to cover up my hole with my ribbon at the bottom, but I realized that it wouldn't be standing up straight. So I took some spackle and covered that up after I had already painted it, which actually looks better because you can't see the difference of color once it's painted and then you paint over it. So it was a happy little accident, and I learned a little lesson. So now I'm going to take my black paint pen and I'm going to outline the edges of my stars, and I want one of those little crookedy lines that go around to make it playful and fun. And so I'm just going to go around both of my white stars and my red star and then fill it in a little bit and make it nice and thick. Now I'm going to write "O come, on the 2 little stars, and then on the big one I'm going to put Emmanuel, and then right under that I'm going to write "and ransom captive Israel," which I didn't realize that's what it said in the song, so I had to look it up, but it fits perfectly. And I just went through a little sneezing session so my nose is stuffed up now. That's why I sound different. So now I'm going to do my downstroke method where I make the lines that are going downwards a little bit thicker, and this is called faux calligraphy. So I will link a writing tutorial where I go into this a little more in detail, as well as some other methods where if you don't have a cutting machine, you can do your own writing or transfer somebody else's writing onto your project. So I'll have that linked in the description box below. So now I'm going to give my stars some Christmas shine, and I'm going to use some Dollar Tree glitter. And I really like this because you can just pull these off in the little baggies and they're all separated, so you can use different colors for whatever your project is. So I'm going to use some of Dollar Tree's adhesive spray that onto my stars, and then I'll just lightly scatter that all over. So now I'm going to determine the different heights I want for my stars so that they all show. And so I'm using a piece of painter's tape to hold one in place because I only have 2 hands, and so I needed 3. So I'm just going to get those in place, and then using my hot glue, I'm going to glue those down. And then I took small pieces of ribbon to cover that up and get them even more secure by going horizontally. So now I'm going to make 3 sweet little bows, and originally I was just going to use the black and red gingham, but I decided that you couldn't see it very well at the bottom of my red star, so I'm going to make that into the black and white gingham, and then I'll put the red and black ones at the bottom of my white stars. As you can see here, my glitter showed up completely different on the red star, so do as I say and not as I do, and maybe just do the outside of the star so that it doesn't cover your Emmanuel. So now I'm going to take a Christmas pick, and I'm just going to pull some pieces apart and bundle 3 pieces together, and then attach that to the bottom of each of my stands using paddle wire and the wires that are already attached to the picks. And here it is, all finished, and I love how this turned out. And as always, you can use whatever colors you're using in your Christmas decor, but I love these little white tree stands, and I think they're perfect, and those dowels fit perfectly inside them, so you can do all kinds of things with this. But I absolutely love how this turned out, except for my glitter job there. And I tried to wipe it off, but as you can see, it was having none of that. But I really love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For our next Dollar Tree DIY, we're going to be using one of their wooden sleds, some bells, some Christmas greenery, ribbon, some baker's twine, and some really pretty wrapping paper in our same color scheme of red, black, and white. So the first thing I'm going to do is just deconstruct my entire sled, and I'm going to use my Cricut spatula to get those pieces apart. It's super flat and I'm going to be covering it, but I wanted it to be lifted a little bit, so I'll show you what I do to do that. So I'm also going to use my spatula to peel off all of the paper on those runners because I'm going to be painting those, but the rest will be covered with the wrapping paper. So to give our sled a little bit more dimension, I'm going to be using these foam pieces that I got from a gardening kneeling mat. And you guys know I don't throw anything away, so I had used these in a different DIY for fall, and they were the perfect size. So I'm just going to paint those black with my Waverly chalk paint in ink. And then while those are drying, I'm going to cover my sled and the top little sign with my wrapping paper. So I'm just giving it a layer of Mod Podge, and then I'm going to place it on top and then just really rub down and make it nice and flat. And the little glittery snowflakes that were on the sign, I just went over those with my finger and made them come through the wrapping paper so that you can kind of see that indentation. It was just another little cute snowy touch I wanted to add. And I didn't want to sand. So I'm just gonna rub the outline of the sled, and then I'll use my sandpaper to give it a nice finished edge and get rid of that excess wrapping paper. So now I'm going to take my baker's twine and I'm going to feed it through the top part of my bell, and I end up making a little bow at the top, but I changed my mind later, which you guys know I always do. But I was really excited to find this black and white baker's twine. The label calls it maker's twine, and I don't know what the difference is, but it's still super cutie patootie, and it was in the crafter's square and it was the only one there. So anyway, if you can find this, you can use this for lots of fun stuff. So once I get all of my bells strung, I'm going to hang them at different levels, and then once I get them how I want them, I'll tie a knot with all of the strings at one spot so that it can hang over my sled. So I ended up using some small black and white gingham ribbon as well as some black grosgrain ribbon, both from the Dollar Tree, and I just tied a little knot at the top of my bell instead of my baker's twine bows because that got a little busy. So now I'm going to attach my bells to the back of my sled, but I would highly recommend you do this after you put your sled all back together because my strings kept getting all tangled and it was kind of a mess. So I'm just going to put some hot glue down and then give it a little more support using a piece of ribbon to go horizontally again. And then I'm going to attach my foam to my runners using hot glue, and then I'll put those on the back of my sled. Now I'm going to attach the top part of my sled, and this part really doesn't show once we get all the greenery and our big bow on there, but it's a part of the sled, so it needs to be on there. So now I'm going to take some of this nylon rope, and it's kind of hard to make a knot into it because it's so slick, but I'm just going to put a knot at the top, and then I'll cut it off evenly and then feed it through the holes of the top of the sled or the top of the runners, and then I'm going to pull it over and hot glue it down, and then I'll take some white ribbon and wrap it around just to clean up the edges. So now I'm going to take some of this super pretty Christmas eucalyptus and attach that at the top. I only had one pick, so I had to use it sparingly and for a small job. So I just split it in half and then used some on one side and put the rest on the other. And then I'm going to take this netted Christmas ribbon and just make a couple of loops and then tie that with a tinsel stem, and I end up making it a little bit bigger and added 2 more loops to each side. And then I'm going to take a larger bow in the black and white buffalo check and then some of the really pretty polka dotted 5/8 inch ribbon and put that on top, and then I'll attach the entire thing to the crossbar of my sled. And here it is all finished, and I think this is so cutie patootie, and you can hang this, you can lean it against a display, whatever you like, and in whatever colors you're doing for your Christmas home decor. I love the wrapping paper, and Dollar Tree has really been carrying some cute Hallmark patterns. So anyway, you can also rusty up the bells if you don't want them this shiny, and I've seen other YouTubers do that with some cinnamon and I forget what else. But anyway, I love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For our next DIY, we're going to be using 3 of the wooden boxes, some greenery, which is not the one that I use in this picture. We're not using the pine cones, 3 different black and white patterned ribbons, some red ornaments, a pretty Christmas bird, a Sharpie paint pen, and then I added these little round tags that you can find in the school supply area. So I had these boxes left over from a DIY that I did where I made an advent calendar Christmas tree, and I'll link that video in the description box below. So I only had to paint one, and I'm just going to paint all of the outside white, and then I'm going to take my small 5/8 inch ribbon, and there's a little bit larger gingham black and white ribbon, and then there's a smaller one, so you can totally tell the difference, and that was perfect because then I had 2 different patterns. And then I'm also using the black and white polka dotted pattern. So all I'm doing is making presents, and this is one of my favorite DIYs, and it was so easy but turned out so stinking cute. And so I'm just going to do a crisscross on the top of my package and hot glue that on the inside and 1 little dot in the middle at the top so that it stays all in place. And then I'll make perky bows for each of my presents and place those right on top. So now I'm going to embellish the top of my packages using a little bit of really sweet greenery, and then I'll put a small red matte ornament on each one of them. And I'm just placing them in different areas so that they all look a teeny bit different. So once I get my boxes all done, I'm going to take my black paint pen, and on each one of the boxes I'm going to write happy and then birthday and then Jesus, because that's what this season is all about. Now I'm going to take my bird and pull the clip out of the bottom of him and then just hot glue him to the last box on the corner. And then this was kind of an afterthought, but I decided to write the scriptures that have the story of the nativity on each of my tags. And so I have Luke 2, 4 through 14, Matthew 1, 18 through 25, and I also put Isaiah 9, 6, which was written about 700 years-ish before the birth of Jesus. So that's in the Old Testament, and I just attached those to the top of my presents because this is Jesus's birthday, and actually we're the ones that received the gift. But I thought this would be a great way to have those scriptures on hand so that you can read them on Christmas Eve with your family and just really embrace the true meaning of what Christmas means. For our next DIY, we're staying in that red, white, and black color theme, and so I found these 3 file folders that have super pretty patterns on them. And then to coordinate, I have these 3 ribbons in the black and white buffalo check, that white and black ticking, and then some black grosgrain ribbon. And then I have these scatter foam stars from 4th of July time, and then I have some Christmas greenery that we'll be adding as well. So the first thing I did was just cut my file folders apart, and this would be cute if you were into baseball. You could put that on one of your trees, but I'm just going to wrap them into the shape of a cone, and once you get it to the size and shape you want, because I want 3 different sizes, I'm going to cut it up the back side so that it has a straight line, and then I used hot glue to attach them, but it didn't stay for very long. It just kind of came undone. So I'm going to end up using some Scotch tape, and then I'll cover that seam with some ribbon so that you can't see it, and that'll be the back of our trees anyway. And then I'm going to cut around the bottom of our cone so that it stands up straight. So then I made 3 little perky bows out of my patterned ribbon and left the chenille stem on so that I could put that inside of my cone at the top. And then I'm going to take a skewer and stick it into my stars so that that can stick into the top as well and stay in place. And then I took some Christmas greenery and just added a little bit to the tops, and then I'll add some berries and give it a little bit of white chalk paint to snowy up that greenery. And here's how they turned out, and I think they're so pretty and go perfectly with our color palette. I go down every single aisle of the Dollar Tree, and if I'm doing a vignette in certain colors, I'm focused on those colors alone, and I try to keep everything else out of my brain. So whatever your colors are, you can do this project. It's so easy and so simple. So I love these, and I hope you guys like them too. For our next project, we're going to be using an assortment of bottle brush trees, some vase filler, some round styrofoam, a church ornament, and a clear plastic bowl, and a tuna can if you have one laying around somewhere. And so the first thing I did was painted my bowl in my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to have to give this a few coats just so it doesn't have any of the light showing through. And I'll also paint my tuna can, which won't show really, but just in case it peeks out, I want to make sure it's white. I get a lot of questions about my paintbrush, and this is an Annie Sloan paintbrush, and you can only get them online, I believe, unless you have a local Annie Sloan store. But they're about $40, and this has lasted me for about a year, and it's just now starting to lose some bristles, but very rarely. So this is definitely a good investment. So now I'm going to take a makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using my Waverly chalk paint in ink, which is really just black, and I'm going to go along the rim of my bowl because I want this to look like an enamelware piece. And so to give it that authentic look, you're going to make some little chip marks just by using the corner of your makeup brush. And I usually wait because I'm always going to be making mistakes, and so if I go out of the lines, that's where I'll make one of those chip marks. But I happened to not make any mistakes this time, so I just had to pick some places where I wanted to put them. So now I'm going to take some E6000 and some hot glue and attach my base, and I'm just turning my tuna can upside down and then adding that without mixing them, and then I'll place that at the bottom of my bowl. I want it to stand as upright as possible, so I place my can towards the front, or I guess the top of the bowl. So it's going to be a little back heavy at first, but then once we get all of our goodies in there, it'll be weighted down in the front, so it'll stand straight up. So now I'm going to take my styrofoam discs, and I'm just using my knife to cut it down into a curved shape so that I can glue it into the bottom of my bowl, and then I'll take my full piece and I'll glue it on top of that one so that it's a little bit higher and my pieces will fit and be in the right position. So now I'm going to get my pieces ready, and for the church I just took off the greenery and pulled it out of the little hole that it was in, and then took off the tag. And then for my bottle brush tree, I was so excited to find this gold one. It's nice and big, and it was kind of hidden, so I don't know if somebody was trying to hide it from us or what, but it was the only one I could find in the store, and I haven't seen them since. So but in order to get that to fit inside, I'm going to cut out a little piece of my styrofoam and then hot glue everything on top. And since this is so back heavy and will want to keep falling over on you, I'm using a Dollar Tree plate holder behind it to hold it up while I work. So I was not sure what kind of ribbon I wanted to use for this because I wanted it nice and fluffy, but I didn't want it to cover our scene. So I decided to use this fabric that I got from Walmart, and I can't remember how much it was, but it was with all of the Christmas ribbons. And so I'm just going to make a faux bow and fold it over and then use a chenille stem to cinch it in the middle. And then I'm going to take another piece and hot glue that down so that it makes the middle part of our bow. And then I'm going to take some more strips and I'll use those as the tails and attach those behind my bow and then up along the sides of my bowl. Of course, you can use whatever ribbon works with your decor, but I have a crush on anything with stripes, so this was perfect. So now I'm going to start adding my greenery, and I'm just pushing it into that styrofoam that's already there, and I'm making my tails kind of weave in and out of that greenery so that it's all nice and pretty. And then I'll add some pine cones to the front, some berries, and then I used the scatter foam vase filler to just throw in there so that it looked like there was snow, but you can't even see it, so you don't even need to do that. And then I added a little polka dotted perky bow on the front and some more berries. And then I'm going to take a peace ornament and I'm going to leave the greenery on there, but just kind of adjust it because I have to have something that I'm able to attach to the rim of my bowl. And then again, as an afterthought, because I love lights so much, I'm going to use some of those rope lights with the batteries, and I'm going to tuck that all behind there. And then using my chalk paint again, I'm going to snowy up that greenery and make it oh so wintry. So was anyone else besides me having doubts about how this was going to turn out? I never thought it would be so pretty, and I love the word peace, and every time I see it, I think of John 14:27 that says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." And so I feel like this scene is just so peaceful and so pretty, and wait till you see it at night. It's really even better than what I had in my brain, but I love it and I hope you guys like it too. For our next DIY, we're going to be using this Peace on Earth sign, 2 of the long signs, a Christmas star ornament, and a little battery operated light. And then I found this sweet little nativity ornament, and we're going to be using the inside of that. So all I'm going to do is unscrew the back of my star and pull this apart, and it comes apart pretty easily. And then I'll just pull out the plastic nativity scene, and I'm going to paint that in my Waverly chalk paint in white. We are changing up our color scheme this time and using golds and whites. So I'm going to paint my 2 signs, and these are from fall, but they have the Christmas ones out too, so you can get those. But it doesn't matter what season it is because they're going to turn into white pieces anyway. So I'm going to paint the back and the front of my little nativity scene, and then I'm going to use my folk art metallic pure gold paint to paint my peace and earth, and then my on, I'm going to paint that in my white chalk paint as well. So now I'm going to take my little battery operated light and I'm going to add my batteries, and then I'm going to see where I need to attach it to my ornament, and then I'll just use some hot glue, and I end up adding some more to that so that it stays in place. And then I'm going to take my sign and I'm going to hot glue right at the very bottom, and you notice I had to paint the back of my sign as well just in case it shows from the other side. And I'm going to sandwich that in between those 2 signs and add lots of hot glue and some E6000 just to make sure that it stays in place. And then I'm going to set it on a flat surface to make sure that it's completely flat. So now I'm going to glue my Star of Bethlehem right behind my sign, and I'm going to make sure that it's right in the middle. And it has a base, so you can actually take it out to turn it on and off, but you even don't really have to take it out of the base. You just twist it a little bit and it'll go off and on. So that works out well. So now I'm going to take my little nativity scene and I'm going to make little holes right into my base. And this is a really thin wood, so you can just use your pokey tool that I got from the Dollar Tree and make those holes. And then I'm going to wrap some paddle wire through the two ends and then twist that. And then I'll poke those into the holes and then twist it on the bottom. And then I'm going to go back in with my Waverly chalk paint in white to touch up those wires so that you can't see them. Now you could call this done right here, but I decided to add a little bit more Christmas magic, so I'm just using my spray adhesive and some of that glittery snow, and I'm just going to put that all over the base of my sign. And here it is all finished, and this was so easy and quick, and I love how it turned out. Again, wait till you see it at night. And so I think the simplicity is what gets me on this one, and then I'm loving the little nativity scene. And I did forget to mention that on my ornament, this was left over from last year, but I had to take it apart. It came with a backside also, so I had used that on another DIY, and this one was left over. So you will have to separate that star ornament in order to do this project. But I love, love, love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For our next DIY, we're going to be using 2 gift bags in gold and white, and then 2 frames with the beaded tops, and then 2 packs of the white bottle brush Christmas trees. It's so hard to say. So I did this a long time ago, and I have lost the footage showing my putting the bags into the back of the frames. It's somewhere in some imaginary cloud on my computer, and I cannot find it. So all I did was took them out and then cut it down to the size that I needed, and then I'm just going to put it back in, and these have little tabs on the back, so you just slide them back in and it's easy peasy. So then I'm going to attach my trees to my backboards, and I'm going to cut the back of the trees so that they're flat and then hot glue them onto those gift bags. And then I'm going to make 2 sweet little bows out of some gingham black and white ribbon, and I'm going to attach those to the very tops of my frames. And you know I have to change my mind at least one time, so originally I was putting it on the side, but I ended up putting it right in the center. And here they are all finished, and I didn't even have enough footage to walk you through every single step. But anyway, I think these turned out so pretty. There's just something about gold and white that makes my heart so happy. And then you throw in some stripes and some polka dots, and I am just smitten. So I love how these turned out, and I hope you guys like them too. For our 10th and final DIY, we're going to be using this Christmas sign, a gold star, and then this long piece of wood, also from the Dollar Tree. You don't have to use this, you can just hang this sign, but I decided I wanted it to be a tabletop display. So the first thing I did was remove the little Happy Holidays sign on the front, and then I'm going to rip out the staples from the back, and you don't even have to sand this because the star is going to cover that side up. So I'm going to just take my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to completely cover the entire board. I ended up not painting the back of the sign, but you really should. I'm just trying to conserve my paint, and so I'm using my Annie Sloan paintbrush again, and I'm going to give that 2 good coats. And this is really all about the decal, and I will have this available in my Etsy shop. The font I'm using is called Amalfi Coast, and I got that from dafont.com, and you can download fonts for free for personal use. So this is going to say they followed the star. And again, I'm using my FRISCO Craft adhesive vinyl in black matte. And then I'm also going to be using their transfer tape, both of which I'll have linked in the description box below, as well as my discount code. So all I'm going to do is attach this to the side of my sign and make sure that I have enough room to adhere my star over to the right side. And if you don't get your decal in the right spot right away, anytime you have a painted wood surface, you have a little bit more wiggle room to adjust it so that it's nice and level. So now I'm going to take my gingham ribbon and make a sweet little bow by just folding it over in thirds and then using a chenille stem to attach it in the middle. And then I'm going to attach it right to the top of my star to cover the hole where you would hang it from your Christmas tree. And then I'm going to measure where I need to put my hot glue so that it'll attach to my sign. I actually made it a little too low and had to remove it, repaint it, and then put it up a little bit higher so that it could sit on my stand. And so to make my stand, I'm going to use my super sharp craft knife, and I'm going to make lines all the way down the middle of my board. And I used a straight edge to make sure that I could get it all the way down. I wasn't exactly perfectly straight, but that's okay. I'm going to just keep going and then get the insides out until it's nice and deep and wide so that my board will fit right inside. And then I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in ink and paint my entire stand. Then once everything is all dry, I'm just going to pop my sign inside. I did use a hammer to kind of get it into the slot because it was really tight. And when I did that, I put a cloth on top so I didn't ruin my board. And here it is, all finished, and I love this so much and the message that it brings. Can you imagine the relentless and steadfast faith these men had to have in order to make that journey? These crafts have just brought so much joy and meditation into my crafting time, and I really hope you guys enjoyed them. You may have noticed that I am super behind on my comments, so just know that when you see a heart coming from me, that really is my whole heart going out to you. Don't forget to stop by Heidi's channel and watch her amazing video. If you did like these projects, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. If you're not already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below and the little bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. As always, remember the reason for the season. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye!